Welcome to Super Families with Sue, where we empower families to achieve their God-ordained destiny and to make a positive difference in the world. My name is Sue Karuga. I'm glad you could join us. We are raising our children in a highly sexualized environment. The only way that our children will make it is if we have an affirmative action and face the issue head on. Join me as we continue to delve into this issue of sexuality. Welcome. Welcome back as we continue with our discussion on this topic of underage sex. And today we want to look at sexual pressure that is on our children. If you grew up before the 1990s like myself, then you know that at that particular time, even to mention the word sex was a taboo. We would not mention that word. We would call it tabia mbaya or bad manners. And there was a certain fear, a certain taboo in mentioning the term sex. And for example, for myself, I knew about sex, yes, but I had never heard that there can be any other different kind of sex other than the one that is between a man and a woman. I had never heard about it up until I went to secondary school and I was in a girls' boarding school, and for the first time I heard of the term lesbian, and I had never heard about it, and so I was shocked. And I heard the girls talking about it, and at some point I also had one teacher talk about it, and I didn't know what it was all about, and I was very curious and I was very shocked. And so growing up at that particular time, I mean, it was not possible to have heard about such things. But today things have changed, and the whole issue of sexuality has become a very, very complicated issue. For example, today we have different types of sexuality. And by sexuality or sexual orientation, here we are talking about a pattern of emotional, romantic, or sexual attraction that a person experiences. That is what we are talking about. And right now we are hearing of different kinds of attraction other than the one that we were familiar with between a male and a female. And therefore, and maybe just to digress a bit, and I will not get into details about that, but today we have at least 4 categories of sexual orientation. We have the one I knew before, and that is this one here, that is called the heterosexual orientation. That is the orientation between a male and a female. That means attraction between a male and a female. So if you are a man, you're attracted to a woman. If you're a woman, you're attracted to a man, and so forth. That is the most common. It is estimated that 90% of our population would be heterosexual. People who are heterosexual are also said to be straight. So if you hear someone saying they are straight, it means that they only have this kind of relationship. That is the heterosexual relationship. And of course, next to that many of us would be familiar with is this one here, which is the homosexual kind of a relationship. And this is whereby a person is attracted to a person of the same gender. So if you're a man, you're attracted to another man. If you're a woman, you're attracted to another woman. And today, this particular kind of title is considered to be derogatory, so that now people prefer to use the term gay and lesbian, so that if you are a man and you're attracted to another man, then you are referred to as gay. And if you're a lesbian and you're a woman attracted to another woman, then you're called or referred to as a lesbian. And then I have this other one here, and this one here is bisexual. These are people who are attracted to all genders. So you are attracted to male, you're attracted to female. And nowadays it has even become even more complicated, because now we have another gender, those who are identifying themselves as transgender. Those are people who are they could have maybe the characteristics of a man, but they identify as a lady, and vice versa. They could also have the physical characteristics of a lady, but then they identify as a man, the transgender. And then now you can have now the bisexual. Those are the people who actually relate sexually to people from any of those gender. And then now lastly, the one I want to highlight, the last category are these ones. They are called the asexual. These are people who do not experience any emotional, romantic, or sexual attraction with anyone. So they don't experience that. And therefore, they are always wondering, why is it that people are always having to talk about sex? Because nowadays, we are raising families in a highly sexualized environment. That taboo that used to be around sexuality nowadays has gone, and everything is being referred to as sexy. I'm always wondering, why can't you just say that the car is beautiful? Must you say it is sexy? And when you instead of saying somebody's smart, you say they are sexy. I don't know what is all this fascination with the terminology sex, but what normally happens is that when a term is overused, the impact that it initially had usually wanes away, and that is what we are finding nowadays, so that people can actually talk about that term without having any issue with it, without any fear, without taboo around it. And perhaps that is why to some extent we are experiencing a lot of promiscuity, because now we are seeing a lot of casual approach towards the whole issue of sexuality. And now, what I would like to highlight right now is this, that we are finding a situation whereby those different groupings of people have their own agenda and their own issues. Growing up personally, for example, as a girl, I only had challenges with boys when it comes to sexual pressure. I would only face sexual pressure from boys. Boys, of course, who were attracted sexually, romantically, and even emotionally to me. And my parent also only had to deal with the issue of me and boys, so that if she saw me relating to girls, she felt safe. She didn't have a big problem with that, because at that particular point, the only threat, especially in relation to underage sex, would only come from boys if I'm a girl. And the same thing would happen to a boy. A boy would only have challenges from girls. Especially as far as underage sex is concerned, so that a parent would only need to be concerned for their son if they observe that they are really fascinated with girls and they are pushing it. So that's the time they would have a concern. They would not have a concern if the boy is visiting with other boys and so forth. But now the ground has shifted. You can imagine all these groups have their agenda. Those who are bisexual, those who are homosexual, and so forth. All of them have their agenda. In fact, you may have come across this kind of thing, an acronym. In the past, we have been mostly seeing the first four letters, LGBT. Those are the ones which were common, but now it has become even more complicated, where the L would stand for lesbian, those people the women who are relating with other women sexually. Then we have the gay, as we have said earlier, sexual relationship between a man and a man. Then we have the bisexual, as we have highlighted. And then we have T, that represents the transgender. Those we have also highlighted before. Then we have the Q, who are referred to as the queer or the questioning, those who have not yet quite identified their sexuality, and they are still investigating and exploring. Yeah, those ones, the Q, or the questioning, or the queer. And then we have the I, who are being referred to as the intersex. And then we have the asexual. And now they have even added a plus to refer to all those other people who have a sexuality that is not straight. They don't identify as being straight or as heterosexual. And I'm sure you could have seen this kind of sign somewhere. And this just goes to show that each of these groups are forming, each of these people are forming groupings, support groups, in order to push their agenda, whether it is socially or even politically, to protect themselves. Because, for example, those who belong to this group consider themselves to be a minority, and that is true. We are told, for example, the asexual people are just about 1% in a population, and those are very few, and therefore they would form groups so that they can push their agenda. So that now today, if you have a child, you can see the complexity of the issue that surround their sexuality. They are not only going to be facing pressure from those people who consider themselves to be straight, but they will also be facing pressure from all those others who consider themselves to belong to each of those other groupings. And now that complicates this whole issue of sexuality for our children, and also especially for our teenager. And this brings another perspective for us as parents, that not only are we required to talk to our children about sexuality and their sexuality, for example, we also need to work with them. And remember, we said 10 reasons why we need to talk to our children about sex. And now you can see how it has become complicated. A child who has been taught, to identify their sexuality and to learn how to handle sexual issues is well adjusted, and they are able to withstand sexual pressure irrespective of where it is going to be coming from. As we saw earlier, we saw children who have been talked to by their parents and educated about sexuality are better able to make healthy decisions when it comes to their sexuality. And for us as parents, there's something we need to do. We need to stop hiding our heads under the sand. The fact that you assume that these issues are there will not make them run away or go away. These issues are here with us to stay. And no matter how much we wish them to go away, they are here with us to stay. And it is also important to remember that sex education is not being taught in schools, and if it is taught, it is distorted. It may not be the truth or the reality as it is. And therefore, it is important for us parents, and especially for those of us who are responsible parents, to take the time to talk to our children about their sexuality and to educate them about the complexities of the issues that are surrounding the issue of sexuality nowadays, so that they will be well adjusted and empowered to deal with sexual pressure that will be coming from any corner. A few years ago, there's a girl who came to me for advice, and she told me that she was taken to a boarding primary school when she was young. And while she was there, the older girls in class 8 and class 7 used to take advantage of them and abuse them sexually. And in this case, the older girls was lesbian. So they introduced those young girls into lesbianism. And as a result, she told me that she usually moves with older women. And so I could take it, for example, that by coming to share that with me, she was essentially telling me that she was emotionally, romantically, sexually attracted to me because I am an older lady. Yeah, and already by this time around, she was an addict. And this is something that happened to her when she was in class 5, having been taken to a boarding school. So you can see the kind of pressure that our children are having to go through at a very young age. And these groups, each of these groups is pushing their own agenda, whether socially or even politically. And so you find a lot of cartoons that are having this kind of information. You find a lot of songs, and therefore there's no hiding, and this is not going to go away. So instead of assuming, we'd rather be talking about it. Let us have our children educated. Let them understand the various issues that they are facing. It is a very, very hard time to be a child during these days. Sometimes you think about it and you see the kind of emotional turmoil that the children are being faced with, because they are constantly being bombarded with content that is really sexual, whether in terms of music, on television, on cartoons. And a lot of times nobody has educated them concerning these things, and therefore they are left there on their own to deal with it. And it becomes very hard, and no wonder many children are getting lost. Many children are getting into very, very risky behavior. Of late, we are seeing this situation of teenagers being found in wild parties with orgies, sexual orgies. They are taking alcohol and drugs, and it is a very sad situation. But many times you'll find children, when they are not guided, when they are not educated, they are more likely to take those kind of wild risks compared to if they are informed and equipped with the necessary knowledge. And therefore, as parents, it's hard time. Let's arise to the occasion. Let's talk about these things in our homes. Let's prepare ourselves so that we can empower our children to be able to overcome the sexual pressure that is being thrown at them. For now, I will stop there. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching, and God bless you. Please consider subscribing and sharing so that we can be able to encourage and reach many more parents with this. God bless you.